Welcome to you in our podcast. We have a special guest today. Nada, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
How are you? I'm fine. Nada, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Nada Ahmed Musa. I'm a student at the Faculty of Engineering, Alexandria University, Electronics and Communication Department, but I also work as an English coach.
Oh, wow, great. So, Nada, we need to learn from you and we need to improve our English. So, can you tell us a strategy? How can we improve our English in general?
So, in general, for any language, really, not just for English, it's very important to practice and expose yourself to that language. So,
Yeah,
for example, if you just sit and study the grammar, you're not really going to be able to implement it or use it if you don't know how it's being used in real life situations.
yeah. So, grammar
Yeah.
is the main point.
No, it's
But
not a main point, but the thing is, many people, when they start learning a new language, English specifically, they start with the grammar
yeah,
because it makes sense to check what helps me build the main sentence structure, which is grammar. But it's not the main thing that you should start with in order to learn a language. That's what people usually do, and it's a very common mistake. People overwhelm themselves with the grammar that they put some kind of filter in their mind, and they take time to think and analyze this grammar instead of trying to speak or trying to give an output of any form.
yeah. So, what is your advice? How can I start?
So the first thing to start is to try, as I said, to expose yourself to the language. So know the most common vocabulary and the commonly used phrases, like the day-to-day phrases, how to say what your name is, how to say what you like to do in your free time, how to ask how the other person is doing, etc. Like things that we could actually use in day-to-day conversations.
Yeah,
From there, you start to look for more complicated phrases, for more complicated vocabulary. When you have a solid base to be able to, for example, look at a very basic paragraph and recognize the words, you can then start thinking about the grammar and how to build sentences from scratch. But the main thing is to know the elements, which are the words, the elements that you will use to build a sentence.
yeah. I would like to ask you now. Nowadays, most of companies they make English interview for new employers. So, how can I pass an English interview?
So, to pass an English interview, there are actually two steps. It's to know how to pass an interview and then to try and do the same thing just in English. So,
Yeah,
for an interview, all you have to do is have enough like knowledge about the place you're going to apply for. How can you link this place to your experience? Why do you think you're suitable? And then comes the English part, and it's being able to use the English language to say these things, to be able to hold a conversation and convey all your points in proper English. So the
yeah,
main thing when you're preparing for an English interview is to just prepare for the interview and then try to switch that to English. Like be comfortable with saying whatever it is you would have said in, say, an Arabic interview, but in English.
yeah. And the main point is the confidence. How can I say it?
Yes, obviously, the confidence is very important because some people who don't actually have that much of a good English could still pass an English interview over a person who's more fluent than them if the other person stammers or lacks confidence. So even if they're fluent, you
Yeah.
still may not pass the interview because you couldn't show enough confidence and command on the language.
Yes, yes. So we need to transfer to writing section. Most of people they say that yeah, I need to write an article. I have the idea, but I can't write a full article. So, what is your advice or tips to write a correct article?
Okay, so I think when people start thinking about writing an article, it seems overwhelming because it is a long piece of writing and it includes a lot of information. So the first thing is to try and break your article into small points. Like obviously there is the main structure of introduction and then the body and the conclusion, but there is actually more subheadings than that. Like within the body, what am I talking about? What are the points that I'm going to explore in this article? And then try to write small pieces on each of your points and then try to connect them together or try to use conjunctions or how do you link this part to the other part, or maybe if you think you want to rearrange your article you can if you have separate pieces about the separate points. So instead of approaching the article as one big block, which often
Yeah,
is more intimidating than writing like 3 or 4 lines on one point,
yeah,
try to section it to small points and to write very short amount for each of those points, and then it's going to build up
yes,
just in a less intimidating sense.
yes. What about the conclusion and the summary at the end of the article?
The conclusion, yeah, the conclusion is basically, as you said, a summary at the end of the article. The point of the conclusion is for the reader to get the gist of what you said in a very short piece. So I'm reading, let's say I'm reading a 2 or 3 pages article. There is obviously points that I'm bound to forget or things that I'm bound to overlook. And maybe one of those things or like a couple of those things are something the reader meant as an important point, but I mean the writer meant as an important point, but the reader didn't see that. So when you come to the conclusion, you try to capture the reader's attention to the most important parts that you want them to leave after reading this article with.
yes. Um, we transfer to listening part. So
Mhm.
most of people they watch movies, but their comments, oh, I read the subtitles and I can't listen very well to the actor. So your tips,
Okay, so listening is
yeah,
listening is actually a very major like part and it plays a very major role in learning a new language. One of the main things that any teacher or any language coach says is listen a lot, try to watch a lot of videos, try to watch a lot of movies. Now the comment you said about people talking about subtitles and how they focus more on the subtitles instead of the audio track itself, I don't know, but I think that this problem arises because people usually tend to watch the movies with subtitles of their native language. So even if the movie is English, people would watch the subtitles as Arabic.
yeah,
So what happens is that your mind focuses on the Arabic instead of focusing on the English. And it kind of filters out the audio. You just listen to the voice of the character, to the background noises, to the background music, but you don't actually listen for the words. That's why we advise the people who start watching things. You're obviously not going to get the audio directly, which is why subtitles exist. And we tell them to use the subtitles, but instead of using subtitles in your own mother tongue, use the subtitles in English.
yes,
So what happens when you do this, your mind is is thinking in English instead of originally it was focused on the Arabic or whatever language subtitles you were reading instead of focusing on English. But now when the subtitles are in English and the audio is in English, your mind is oriented on one language, and at this time the subtitles it's going to enhance your hearing. I don't know if you ever tried it, but maybe like play a video of a word and you don't understand the word when you play the video, and then play like look at the word and play the video, you will hear how this actually is the word. So there's something about reading it and saying it that actually makes your mind listen to this word as well.
Yes. So I would like to ask you if you recommend any application or website to improve our listening and English in general.
So a very good resource of listening to or watching English videos is TED Talks. They're on a variety of topics, and most of them on the main TED channel are like subtitled with many languages. So even if you can just listen to it, you can also read subtitles in the language of your choice.
Yes.
And there's an application which is called, honestly, I don't really remember the name. I'm trying to find it right now, but this application, it plays short videos, like short clips of like movies or animated cartoons, etc. And there are no subtitles initially. So you try to listen to the phrase or the statement said in this video.
Yeah.
And then it asks you, like it gives you the choice to say the meaning of what you heard, not to say what you heard. So it gives you two choices, one of which is a definition or is an alternate way to say what you heard in the video. So here it actually tests your comprehension.
Great.
So it checks if you actually understood what you listened to, even if you don't remember it word to word. And then you have an option to see the subtitles of what you listened to after solving the question. So you end up getting like to see what did you hear, but know that for a fact you understood the statement before reading it.
It's called English Stories.
No, it's not called English Stories.
I have one the same.
This is actually a very common website that I use from time to time. I don't know how did I forget its name. I'm going to remember it at some point.
Okay.
Like we can go on with the questions and I'm going to remember it.
Yeah. So thank you, Nada, for your advice and your experience in learning and teaching English. So I'm very happy that I was with you today, and I wish to meet you again in our podcast with new topics. And thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to send you the name of the website so you can tell it to the people who are going to listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Later.
Oh,
okay. I found out the name of the website. It's called VooScreen.
voice.
VooScreen.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't use it, but of course I will try to apply what you said and try that application to improve my English. And thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.